Bueno, muy buenas tardes a todas las personas que se conectan a esta sesión informativa de Colfuturo con la Universidad de Alberta en Canadá. Hoy contamos con la representante Nicole, quien nos va a contar toda la información de utilidad sobre la oferta académica, opciones de financiación, al igual que el convenio que se tiene con Colfuturo, con el cual ustedes podrán recibir un excelente beneficio para su programa de posgrado. Entonces, para aquellas personas que estén interesadas en hacer su posgrado en esta universidad, los invito y las invito a que se queden a la sesión, escuchen toda la presentación que tiene preparada para nosotros Nicole y asimismo aprovechar que contamos con Luis. Entonces, es una persona que está viviendo esa experiencia de posgrado, así que va a ser de mucha utilidad para ustedes también, pues conocer esa experiencia, saber de pronto ya desde una persona que está viviendo en este momento eso de pronto que podrían tener en cuenta en este plan que están en este caso forjando para empezar esa ruta para hacer el posgrado en el exterior. Así que aprovechemos en este caso también esta información que va a ser de mucha utilidad que nos va a proveer Luis. Entonces, con eso ya dicho, les recuerdo que como lo venía mencionando, Colfuturo tiene un convenio con la Universidad de Alberta, así que si ustedes desean acceder a este beneficio que Nicole nos va a describir más adelante, ustedes deben postularse a nuestro programa Crédito Beca y en ese ustedes van a poder, si son seleccionados por Colfuturo, recibir ese porcentaje que tenemos como resultado del convenio. Así que sin más introducción, los invito a que si también tienen dudas, preguntas mientras que Nicole hace su presentación, mientras que Luis de pronto también hace su intervención al final, pueden dejarlas en la cajita de Q&A y al final resolveremos todas las inquietudes. So with no more introduction, thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Luis. You can go ahead and start the presentation.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the introduction. Thank you everyone for joining us today to learn a bit more about the University of Alberta. I'm just going to share my screen here and I will mention Luis and I here in Edmonton, there's a thunderstorm starting, so I hope it doesn't interrupt the presentation too much. So yes, my name is Nicole. I work in the international office at the University of Alberta. So I work in what's called the sponsored student program, which I'll speak more to later, but I work very closely with the Colfuturo students here at the University of Alberta, including Luis, who is a current Colfuturo student here. So Luis, I'll turn it over to you to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your experience.
Sure. Thank you, Nicole. Hey, everyone. I'm Luis Carlos. I'm from San Vicente Chucuy, Santander. I'm a geologist who studied at Universidad Industrial de Santander in Bucaramanga, Santander. And I started my thesis-based master at the University of Alberta last September, almost a year ago. So yeah, I'm going to start my second year. My research is focused on groundwater and surface water interaction in order to model regional watersheds in cold regions. And when I was planning to study abroad, I decided to study at the University of Alberta because it's one of the best universities worldwide. Depending on the ranking, it's going to change the position, but well, you can see that, for instance, petroleum engineering is in the top 5 around the world, so that's very impressive. And I also want to highlight that people here is super kind, friendly, and tolerant, and this city is very safe. So that's great for live while you are studying your master and achieving your goals. And you can meet people from a bunch of culture, which is very interesting. For instance, in my lab, I have colleagues from China, Iran, Canada, India. And as you can see in the picture, my wife and I love hiking, traveling, and enjoy the wildlife. So this city have many parks, and the Rocky Mountains are super close to Edmonton. So it's an amazing place to live, to study. And to conclude, I would say that the university has excellent professors to grow academically, but simultaneously, you are going to have a high quality of life. And also you can check and visit those kind of places that are super great.
Perfect. Thanks, Luis. And yeah, so Luis is gonna, provide some feedback at some other points during the presentation, and he'll be around at the end to help answer some questions that you might have. So I'll just move on to the presentation portion. So just to start with, in terms of where we're located and a bit more about the campus community. So we are in the city of Edmonton, which is the capital city of the province of Alberta. So we're right kind of in the center of the province. Edmonton is the capital city, so we're the government center of the province. It's a population of about 1 million people here in Edmonton. So here is an aerial shot of our main north campus. You can see here the river kind of runs through the center of the city. The University of Alberta campus is on the south side of the river, and then downtown is across on the north side. So a little bit about Edmonton. So as Luis mentioned, we're quite close to the Rocky Mountains. So it's about a 3-hour drive to get to some beautiful scenery any time of year, as you could see from Luis's photos, winter, summer, there's lots of great hiking and activities to do in the mountains. Edmonton, we're kind of one of the most northernmost major cities in Canada. So we do get a lot of bright sunshine all throughout the year, even in the winter seasons, even on rainy days, the clouds are pretty clear and we get a lot of sunshine here. And we are home to North America's largest urban park space. So Edmonton is home to 150 kilometers of trails that run throughout the city, and they're connected with various parks. So it's a great place if you enjoy exploring the outdoors for things like hiking, cycling. There's a number of ski hills in the city as well, if you enjoy skiing or snowboarding or want to try that out. So yeah, it's great in that way, but then also it's good in terms of culture and activities as well. So we are home to the largest shopping mall in North America, West Edmonton Mall. So there are lots of stores. It actually has like an amusement park and a water park inside, which is, a great place to escape to in the winter if you want to feel like you're on a beach. Lots of really good restaurants from a variety of different countries, cultures. And we also have the largest museum in Western Canada. And this shot here is during the Folk Fest. So Edmonton is known as Canada's festival city. And so this just means that we have lots of festivals throughout the year, especially in our summer season. It's very busy. There's lots of music festivals, arts, culture, celebrating, various countries. So it's there's never a shortage of things to do here in the city. And, we often get asked, what about the weather? Because, Edmonton is, we experience all 4 seasons. So there is a winter season as well. So here's an idea of the types of temperatures we experience. But Luis has offered to kind of share his perspective on, because I'm an Edmontonian at heart. And so maybe it might be helpful if you hear from Luis and his experience with the weather here in Edmonton.
Yeah, sure. So as you know, in Bucaramanga, where I have lived most of my life, the average temperature the whole year is around 25 degrees. So it's a bit different to live in Edmonton, of course, because the temperature here varies between -20 to 20 on average. So I know that it's quite challenging. Imagine living in this kind of frozen temperature for us, because in Colombia, we don't have that kind of temperature. However, I would like to share my short experience, because I used to feel afraid of this temperature when I just arrived with my wife. But after some months, after living the first winter, it just used the proper clothes, a good jacket and some layers. and that's it. And this region is completely prepared for live below those temperatures. So you are going to find the heating everywhere, including the public transport, the buildings, the house, etc., the malls. And in addition, you can track like efficiency your public transport in order to avoid to stay awake when it's not needed. So don't be afraid. It's really easy to live in this city because everything is prepared for that. And in addition, there are many activities to enjoy the winter outside. As Nicole mentioned, there are festivals, also ice skating that was great for us, our first experience. It was very funny. Snowboarding, that is our next plan this winter, is what we want to do this winter. And the other thing is that maybe Edmonton is not really windy, because there are some cities that the average temperature could be a warmer weather, but those cities could be windier, so that increases the cold sensation. So here in Edmonton, it's not really windy, so that's a good point for Edmonton. And yeah, to conclude, don't be afraid of the winter, just be prepared, and that's it.
That's a great tip, Luis. Yes. Yeah, as long as you're prepared with the right clothing, and there's lots of places you can go shopping at here to buy appropriate winter clothing. But once you have that, you know, there's lots of really fun activities that you can participate in. And yeah, it's you know, winter is a great experience, especially if you've, you know, having those first experiences with the snowfall. It can be pretty magical. So, okay. So, talking about transportation. Here on the University of Alberta campus, you have very easy access to transportation options to go anywhere else in the city. So there is a main bus station right on campus, and there are 2 train stations on campus as well to connect to other regions of the city. Students receive a discounted rate on a transportation pass. So you're not paying full price, it's a discounted rate, and it allows you to access any of the city transportation facilities. And we also have a very large expanding network of bike lanes, and, you know, e-scooters are becoming very popular here as well. And, you know, if you do enjoy riding your bicycle, we have a bicycle library on campus as well. So if you want some help finding a used bike, or, you know, they have bicycle mechanics to kind of teach students how to maintain their bike, that's available to you as well. Now, in terms of families, so some of you might have a spouse and or children that you want to bring with you when you're studying abroad. Here, like in terms of children, we do have a childcare center here on campus, and we have other ones that are very close to campus as well. Childcare, there's not really a discounted subsidized rate for students. There are some bursaries that you can apply for that. For children that are in the ages of the 5 to 18 range, the public education system here is free for children. So you'd be able to access that if you are bringing kids. And then I'll kind of turn it over to Luis, because he can talk to his experience bringing his wife with him to Canada.
Yeah, sure. So when you move to Canada with your family like me, your spouse will receive an open work permit. So that's great, because your spouse can apply for jobs in their field or in another one. So it's not really matter, that kind of thing. So in addition to that, there are some like organization in addition to the university to provide assistance to newcomers, like English lessons, online courses. For instance, the Edmonton Public Libraries, they offer LinkedIn courses to improve your skills. And the university has English conversational lessons on Saturday. There are also a food bank here in the university, so you can use the food bank twice a month, that it helps a little bit with the groceries. There are also some English institutes that offer a special price to study like a long course of English for your partner or your child, also your wife or spouse. In some, the price is really affordable. And to be honest, usually the person who has the open work permit spends some months to find a job, because it's completely normal when you move to other country. And it also depends on their experience, career, and last but not least, the English level. But it's a great opportunity that the university and other like organization provides some English lessons in order to improve your English while you are here. So it's just that. And also, well, there are other kind of opportunities that is volunteer. So, well, while you are finding an opportunity to job, or your spouse is trying to find an opportunity, they can apply for volunteer opportunity that is common in Canada. And from our experience, from the first month, my wife started to attend conferences, English courses, and free English lessons to improve her skills while applying to different job positions. And some months ago, she got a skill job. So it's great because it's like less than 6 months that she got a skill job. And also I found a part-time job at University of Alberta. So it's great because it's here in the library. So I just in the same like neighbor, and it's everything. So that's great. It's basically that, my experience.
Perfect. Thank you, Luis. Appreciate it. Yeah, that's really helpful to know, because it's a lot of things to think about. So it's nice to know that there are possibilities for families as well. Okay, so now moving more onto the U of A specifically. So we are home to just over 42,000 students from 159 different countries. So over 7,000 of those are international students. But when you look at our graduate student population specifically, so master's and PhD students, over 40% of our graduate students are international students. So like Luis mentioned, you're going to be, attending classes and doing research with people from all over the world. We are a highly ranked university, so we're among the top 5 in Canada and among the top 100 in the world. And like Luis mentioned, there are certain areas that we're ranked very highly in, especially right now. We're really known for our research in artificial intelligence, so we're number 2 in the world for that. And we are also known here in Canada for our graduate employment rates. So we rank number 2 in Canada. And what this means is that employers in Canada just view University of Alberta graduates very highly. And so graduates of programs here tend to have a quicker time getting into their field, getting a job in their field. We do a pretty good job of preparing our students for their career goals afterwards. In terms of research excellence, so we have 400 different research partnerships. We are a top 25 institution for our research in energy. And we also have the second largest research library in Canada. So lots of resources and facilities to kind of support your research here. Now, in terms of working in Canada, so I get asked this question a lot, is it possible? And yes, with a study permit, you can work while you are studying. Normally, like it used to be a maximum of 20 hours per week that students could work. I know the government of Canada recently lifted that cap. We'll see if it comes back on. Right now, it's unlimited. So yeah, we have a lot of graduate students who will sometimes work as a teaching assistant or research assistant while they're studying, but you can choose to work on or off campus. That option is available to you. We do have very high salaries here in Alberta, among the highest in Canada, in comparison to the types of jobs. And in Canada, we have what's called the postgraduate work permit. And what this means is that when you complete your degree program, you can apply for this work permit that allows you to stay in Canada for the same amount of time that you studied, up to a maximum of 3 years. So if you did a 2-year master's, you could potentially get a 2-year work permit after you graduate, which would allow you to work anywhere in Canada. It doesn't even have to be in your field. It's just to give you that opportunity to get some work experience here in Canada before you return home. Now, residents, we have a number of options here on campus. I believe we have 15 different residence buildings. Some of them are dedicated specifically to graduate students. So you have a variety of options if you want to pay a little bit more, if you want to have your own suite, your own apartment. That option is available. If you want to save a little bit of money, you have the option to pick a suite with a roommate. So 2 separate rooms, but some shared common areas. And there is also an option to join our meal plan as well. So you can pay to have this meal plan added to your ID card so that you can then use any cafeteria or restaurant on campus. So, you know, some students, especially in their first semester, if they're busy, overwhelmed, that's a nice option for them to have. So we have an International Student Services Center. So I work very closely with my colleagues here. We have specialized advisors who advise on a number of topics for international students. Many of the advisors are certified immigration advisors, so they can provide advice on applying for a study permit, or if you're already here and you need to renew any immigration documents, they can kind of help you with that. They put on a great orientation for international students at the start of the semester, which includes airport pickup and welcome. They have advisors that can advise on any topics, whether it's academics, life, and they do some programming as well. Our English Conversation Club meets once a week, and they're starting up, you know, now that it's kind of post-COVID, they're starting up the peer support program as well, which is meant to kind of connect current students with new incoming students. So they kind of have someone to kind of mentor them, especially during that first semester. So some other services and supports on campus. For academics, we have the Academic Success Center, which provides a lot of workshops on a variety of topics. So especially for grad students, they have workshops on things like how to write a thesis proposal, or how to do a literature review, or maybe you might want to present your research at a conference. They have workshops to kind of help you prepare for that. Student accessibility services. So if you have any physical or mental issues that you need support with, they can kind of help accommodate that. In terms of health services, we do have a health center right on campus. So if you do need to see a doctor for anything, that's here for you to access, as well as the pharmacy is in the same building. So if you have a prescription from the doctor that you need to fill, you can just go downstairs and fill it at our pharmacy. All graduate students are enrolled in our health and dental insurance plan. And you have free access to our counseling services as well. Recreation facilities. So we actually have 2 main ones here in Edmonton on our North and South campus. So just using your student ID card, you have access to the fitness equipment. We have a fairly new climbing wall center. We have swimming pools, various courts, and you also get discounts if you want to take any type of recreation related courses or classes like dance classes or yoga or anything like that. And we have over 450 different student groups. So these are student-led. So, you know, whatever your hobbies or interests might be, it's very likely you will find a student group with similar interests. Okay. Now, going into kind of the academic side of things, this is our list of faculties that offer graduate programs, so master's and PhD. So we have over 500 different graduate programs. So I'm not going to go into detail on all of these. I'll talk more about things like admission requirements, application procedures, things like that. So yeah, feel free if you want to check out our website, if you wanted to dive a little bit deeper on the program specific for your research area. So now in the types of graduate degrees that we offer, for masters, there's kind of two main directions you can take. So we have I'll start with the course-based masters, and it's just that you would be doing essentially just coursework and then a small final project at the end of your program. So a course-based master's typically takes anywhere between 1 to 2 years to complete. I would say the majority of students can complete them in 1.5. It depends on the program because they each have different kind of numbers of courses that are required. The one thing to know about course-based masters, though, is that there's not a lot of funding opportunities available. So most students in course-based masters are self-funded, but the Colfuturo funding can be used for a course-based masters. So thesis-based masters, you'll still do some courses, but a smaller number. And those courses are primarily done, you know, in the first year of your degree, and they're courses that are meant to help you prepare for your future research, right? To help you become kind of an expert in that area. So, you know, you do your coursework and then you focus on your thesis research and writing. So a thesis-based master's, it really varies depending on how your research goes, but I would say the average completion time is anywhere between 2 to 3 years for most students. And for master's programs, you typically need to have a 4-year bachelor degree in a similar area to be considered for a master's. A doctoral degree, again, you're going to do some coursework, but it's going to be courses that are meant to help you for your future research. Most students do their candidacy exam by year 2, where you kind of can show that you are an expert in the area and you can proceed with your research. And then most of your time will be spent on that research and writing component. So a doctoral degree at U Alberta, it takes anywhere between 4 to 6 years. Again, it really kind of varies depending on how things progress with your research. And normally students should have a master's degree in that field to be considered for the PhD. But if you have really high grades in your bachelor and some research experience already in your bachelor, some professors might be willing to consider you for the PhD without a master's. It's quite rare, but we do get some students asking about that. So it might be possible for some professors, but I would say the majority expect you to have a master's. Now, in terms of admission requirements, we look at your grades during your most recent 2 years of full-time studies. So we need to see a GPA of at least a 3 out of 4, which I think works out to about a 3.7 out of 5, I believe. Yeah. So, so if you had a rough first year in your undergraduate degree, that's okay. We're not going to really pay attention to that. It's the most recent 2 years. In terms of the English requirement, we primarily look at, most students submit the IELTS or the TOEFL, so IELTS 6.5 or TOEFL 90. If your entire studies were done in English at your home university, a letter of confirming that from your university would be sufficient as well. But I will emphasize that these requirements are just the minimum for our Faculty of Graduate Studies, but some departments do have higher requirements. So for example, especially if it's a really competitive program, like our economics program is very competitive. They ask for a GPA of at least, a 3.3 to 3.5. A lot of our programs in the healthcare field ask for a higher language score. So, I know our dentistry school asks for an IELTS 7.5, or our School of Public Health asks for IELTS 7. So the requirements can actually really kind of vary. These are just the absolute minimum, but I would encourage you to check the website of the department you want to apply to, just to confirm what the requirements are for the program you're interested in. Now, some things to think about before you apply. One of the things I'll talk more about a little bit later is this need to find a professor here first who agrees to supervise your thesis-based program, thesis-based master's or PhD. And the reason this is important is because you don't want to spend the time and the money submitting an application only to find out afterwards that the professor you want to do research with doesn't actually have space or isn't interested. So it's good to kind of start that communication with the professor beforehand, just to get their confirmation first. Luis, I don't know if you wanted to talk about your experience with this.
Yeah, sure. So in my case, it was like 2 years ago. I have a friend who was studying here at the University of Alberta, we call Futuro, who helped me to understand that how is the process, and also he recommended the same. First, find a supervisor is the most important. So what I did was checking the department that I was interested in, that in my case is Air and Atmosphere Science. So I checked the different professor and the research opportunities that they usually post in the website. So you can read what is the best for your purpose or your interest, and then send an email with your CV, your interest, or that kind of things in order to get like a meeting with that person and get like that approval. If you get that approval, so the next step is apply to the university with at least the minimum requirement of the program. So, and then just like wait some months to get the notification. But in my case, I recommend Futuro is, but you are going to talk maybe later about it, what is the discounts that you get. But in addition, that provide like you feel more like relaxed with in terms of economical or financial or something, because you have like this funding every 2 months. So, and in addition, if you get Call Futuro, is good that you mention that to the professor that you are going to send the application, because they are sometimes they reject some people because they don't have funding or something. Most of the time, I would say. So, but if you have Call Futuro, they can open a new space for you. So it's just in case that you need that.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's a good point for sure. Thanks, Luis. Yeah, so some other things to think about before you apply. Like I said, it's good to check the website of the department you want to apply to, because not only are the admission requirements varied, but the application deadlines as well. So in terms of start dates, all programs have a September start date. That's when the majority of students start their studies here. But some programs have a January start date as well. It's a less common start date, but it is a possibility if that just works better for your timing. Just keep in mind, January is the middle of winter, so it'll just be a bit of an adjustment when you get here. And yeah, the deadlines can really vary. So I gave some examples here for some departments. I typically advise students to kind of, once you know when you want to start, so if you want to start your studies in September 2024, then start, almost a year in advance. So, if you want to start contacting professors in, October to see if they're interested in supervising you for your studies next September. So that's usually kind of a good timeline. So in terms of documents that you need to prepare, these are kind of the essential ones that you need to upload online. So for the online application, you don't have to worry about sending official documents for the application process. It's only if you are officially admitted to the program, then you'll bring your official documents with you when you start your studies. So we need to see a CV, your university transcripts and degree certificates. And we need to see these in both the original language and an official English translation. So the translation, it doesn't have to be done by your home university. It can be done by any certified translator in your home city, okay? So the English test score, a statement of research interest, which I will talk about shortly. We usually ask that you have 3 references. So when you submit your online application, you will enter the names and email addresses of 3 references. And then once you submit that application, those 3 referees will get an email with a link to kind of complete the reference portion of your application. And it's good to kind of monitor that to make sure that they're following through, because your application can't be reviewed until your referees have completed their portion. And as Luis and I were saying, it's important to have that confirmation from a potential supervisor, a professor here, for if you're applying to a research-based program. Having a supervisor is not essential for a course-based master's. That's not needed. And I will say that some departments do have additional requirements, particularly if you are wanting to study business or economics. They will want to see either the GMAT or GRE score. I believe psychology asks for that as well. And if you're wanting to apply to a program that has a lot of writing, like English literature or modern languages, they might ask to see a writing sample as well. Okay. So Luis and I already went over this, like how to find a supervising professor. You can find a list of all the faculty members in the department you're interested in on our website. So once you review their profiles, you can check out their most recent publications. Once you've narrowed down who your first choice professor is, you can send them an email. Like Louis said, show them your CV, your transcripts, your English score, and a statement of research intent. And just, keep your email brief. Just say that, you're very interested in their research and you would like to do your graduate studies under their supervision. And then maybe just suggest having a video chat to discuss it further. Keep in mind, some professors get a lot of these requests. So I typically recommend, wait about 2 weeks for a response. If you don't get a response, you can send them a little reminder. If you still don't get a response from them, don't take it personally. Sometimes some professors are just really busy. They might not be looking for new students, so they're not even paying attention to those types of email requests. They might not have space or they're just not interested. So if you're finding you're not getting a response from your first choice professor, then you can just move on to your second choice and do it with them instead. And part of my job is actually to support Colfuturo applicants with this process. That way I can explain to the professor our agreement with Colfuturo, what the funding looks like, because most professors won't be familiar with it. So if you would like my assistance trying to connect you with a supervising professor, feel free to reach out to me and I can kind of guide you through that process and make those initial introductions. So this is one document that I mentioned would be important to include in your communications with a professor, and you might have to upload something like this to your application as well. So the statement of research intent, it's a 1 to 2 page document. It's different from a research proposal. This statement you'll talk about why you want to work with that particular professor. What about their research interests you? You need to make kind of a connection as to how your interests and your goals are related to what that professor is working on, right? There needs to be some type of connection there. You can talk about how your academic background and your experiences are going to, be beneficial for that professor's research group. So basically trying to convince them why you would be a good fit for their program. You can talk about your goals after completing grad studies. So especially if you do have the end goal, like if you're applying to a master's, but you do see a PhD in your future and you want to be in academia long term, be sure to mention that, because if you do have a good connection with this professor and you work well together, then they might consider keeping you on for a PhD afterwards. And the one main tip I will recommend is that you not write one general statement for all professors. The feedback I've gotten from professors is they don't particularly like those ones. They get a lot of those. The ones that really stand out for professors are statements where you really target it to that professor. So you can keep the majority of the information the same for professor to professor, but maybe just have one paragraph that you just adjust for each professor you're sending it to. That shows the professor that you've done your research on them, you know about them, and that you're serious about working with them. So now a little bit about my program, the Sponsored Student Program. So sponsored students are international students who have funding from their home country, like Colfuturo. So some of the things I can kind of help Colfuturo applicants with are assessing if you meet the minimum admission requirements for the program you're interested in, support finding a potential supervising professor, any questions that you have about the application process. And then if you are admitted and you come here, you can come to me if you have any other issues that might come up during your studies here. I might not have all the answers, but I can at least point you in the right direction. And so we do have a long-standing partnership with Colfuturo. We've had many, probably over 50, 60 Colfuturo students graduate from the University of Alberta. So as per the co-funding agreement between us, we have, it is co-funding, so it means that U Alberta will kind of cover the international tuition rate. And so you will be charged the same rate as a Canadian student, the same tuition rate. So it's a pretty significant discount, about, almost 50% tuition discount. So it only applies to students in a research-based program, so a thesis-based master's or PhD. The funding is up to a maximum of 2 years that you would get. So for students in wanting to do a course-based master's, you can still get the Colfuturo funding, you just wouldn't qualify for this type of tuition discount. Another thing to be eligible for this discount is Colfuturo students have to receive at least $15,000 US per year for your living expenses. So we want to ensure you have at least, the bare minimum to cover your essential expenses so that you're not kind of worrying about, how to pay rent and food and things like that while you're studying here. And then, you know, the amount that Colfuturo can provide you is more than enough to cover your Canadian tuition fees and your living expenses while you're here. You can kind of decide your budget with Colfuturo, how much you want to budget for that. And then I work closely with the Financial Services Office to make sure that they are, you know, providing Colfuturo students with the tuition invoices every semester, which you would then, you know, upload to the Colfuturo platform to arrange for payment. So it's a pretty streamlined process. Now, in terms of the tuition amount, just so you kind of know what to expect. So here, an international student is charged almost $9,000 a year for tuition for a research-based program. But for Colfuturo students, it's, you know, $4,750. So a pretty significant discount. Like I said, course-based masters, you wouldn't be eligible for the discount, but the tuition cost really varies depending on the program. I would say the average for most of them is 20,000 Canadian. But, you know, there are some more expensive ones, like the Masters of Engineering is more like 40,000, whereas our MBA, you know, you're getting close to 60 to 80,000. And then there's also non-instructional fees, so 2,000 a year. So that's for things like the insurance, the subsidized transportation pass, your recreation access, academic supports. And then cost of living, I typically advise students to budget approximately 2,000 Canadian per month to cover your essential living expenses while you're here. And that's it. That was a lot of information. Here's my email, uaissp@ualberta.ca. So, you know, we have some time to go through some of your questions in the next 10 minutes, but if you think of anything afterwards, feel free to send me an email. I'm happy to kind of point you in the right direction. Yeah, Lady, I think we can turn it over to some questions.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead with the questions. But first, thank you, Nicole. Thanks, Luis, for sharing the experience. And we're going to go ahead with those questions. So the first one, let me check. It's from Olga. She's asking, does any scholarship apply before the admission at University of Alberta?
I'm guessing maybe she means if she has to apply for any scholarships before getting admission. And maybe, I'm not sure if I'm understanding it correctly, but if that's the case, if you are awarded any scholarships or funding, it's after you get admission. So you focus on getting the admission offer first, and then you'll find out afterwards if you're eligible for any type of funding from the university.
Okay, good. We're going to go with Fernando. He's asking, at the moment, I have a scholarship credit for another country. Can I apply to University of Alberta?
So if this is a Colfuturo credits, then they're welcome to apply to Alberta. I don't know what the process is to switch, you know, in Colfuturo, changing the country.
Yeah, well, I'm going to ask that. I'm going to answer that. So, Fernando, if you're applying for Colfuturo, you have this scholarship for another university in another country. You can ask Colfuturo to change the program for the one that you want to, that you want to have the scholarship right now. And then we're going to try to evaluate the process. And if the process is successful, you can use this scholarship for the new program. But you can do it with Colfuturo if you have the scholarship for another program. We're going to go with Nicolas. He's saying, how could I find a supervisor? Yeah, how can I find a supervisor? Do you have some tips?
Yeah, so I think maybe we might have covered that after this question came in, but like Luis and I said, you know, it's important to check the website of the department you want to apply to, you know, because there is a list of all the faculty members there. They're usually divided up by research area, so you can check which ones are most relevant to what you want to do. And then just emailing that professor directly, making sure that you have a good understanding of their research and their background, sending them your CV, your transcripts, that statement of research intent, and just inquire with them if they have space and if they're interested.
Good. We're gonna go with Olga. She's asking about the Duolingo exam. Is this exam acceptable for the language requirement that you have?
Yeah, that's a great question, Olga. And I don't have a solid answer for you yet. We have been accepting it, since the pandemic started. We did move over to temporarily accepting the Duolingo. But our Faculty of Graduate Studies has not made a decision yet if they will continue accepting it into 2024. So I don't know yet. So in the meantime, you might want to consider taking one of the other tests instead, like the IELTS or TOEFL, just to be on the safe side. But if you want to send me email, and then I can let you know once I get confirmation on that.
Good. Thank you. We have another question from Olga. She's asking, what are the dates for PhD in engineering? I guess she's asking about the admission process for this program.
Yeah. So, like I said, it kind of depends on when you want to start and which specific engineering program you want to study, because the deadlines are all going to be different. But I would say for most programs, if you are wanting to start in September, the application deadline is typically, anywhere between, I would say March, April is for most of them. And like I said, some of them have a January start date, but those deadlines, I think, have already passed. They were kind of June, July for January start. But yes, in terms of start dates, the majority of students will start in September. So if you're looking ahead to September 2024, our online application opens October 1st. And yeah, we'll close sometime between March to May, depending on the program you're applying to.
Yeah. Well, we're going to go with Hugo. This question is for Luis. So he's asking, how expensive is Edmonton to live there? Could you talk something about it, please? If you can share that with us, Luis, please.
Yeah, sure. Well, as Nicole mentioned, 2,000 is more than enough. Because in my case, for instance, for my wife and I, we spend around 1,200 in renting, included service, all the services, the utility. Also, is fully furniture, so we don't have to buy anything about it. And so it was a good deal, but it depends on the region that you live. Is going to change the price, because I have some friends who pay like 800 per a small apartment, but it is further than where I live. So it also affects like the public transport, that kind of things. But in general, I would say that is one of the most affordable like cities in Canada. So if you compare with Toronto, with Vancouver, Calgary, and most of them. So this city is cheaper in terms of living costs. But Hugo, if you need more information, detailed information, for instance, in our case, we spend like 600 per month in groceries. So, but we eat like we usually eat in Colombia. We don't like reduce or saving some money, that kind of things. So yeah, it also depends on varies, depend on the person. But could you send me an email, or by LinkedIn? You can find me with my name. And if you need more information, I'm more than happy to share with you.
Thanks, Luis. So we're going to go with next question. We have Nicholas, and he's asking, could you share this document with us? I don't know which document he's talking about. So maybe Nicholas, if you can like specify which document are you talking about. Well, then we're gonna go with Noreli. She's asking is there a age limit to apply for the program?
At the U Alberta, there's no age limit. There's no age restrictions. I'm not sure about Colfuturo.
No, we do not have it. We're gonna go with Hernan. He's asking, where can I find the summary about this information or the slides?
Yeah, and maybe that's what Nicholas was referring to as well for document. So if you want, maybe like I can share the presentation with you after, if you want to share it with the registrants. Yeah.
Yeah, it will be great.
Sure.
Thank you. So we're gonna conclude with 2 questions. The first one is from Albert. He's asking, can we apply without the language exam and instead apply for an English course in the university?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we do have an English language school at the university, but not all academic departments will accept completion of our English courses as meeting the language requirement. So it really depends on the program you're applying to. So if you need some help kind of figuring that out, feel free to email me and I can kind of get you the details depending on what you're going to be studying.
Okay. Then we're going to go with Julian. A question to Luis. Well, we already talked about it, but maybe just to clarify the information. Julian is asking how hard was to find your supervisor?
Well, in my case, I was lucky, I think so, because I just sent one email to the supervisor that I want to develop my research. And she replied like 2 months later, 2 months after I sent the email. But it was like one option that I sent and I get like that approval. It was great. But I recommend to send 3 or 4 emails and trying to find different like professor, also in different departments. For instance, in my case, could be in engineering or also in earth sciences. So try to find different of them and send to all of them. Well, of course, as Nicole said, no, the same email to all of them because they change a little bit the research like topics. So it should be focused on those kinds of topics. But at least you are going to receive an email to say if there are some opportunities or not. So because people here is super kind and they usually reply.
Good. Okay, so thank you again, Nicole. Thanks, Luis, again for being here for the presentation, for answering all the questions from the participants. So thank you so much. And well, you have here the email if you want to have more information regarding the programs, the admission process. So you can send an email to Nicole and she's gonna, well, answer all your questions and help you with all the process. So thanks all the participants for being here and have a good night here in Colombia. I don't know in Canada if it's morning or night, but here in Colombia, good night, everyone.
Great. Thank you so much. And thanks for joining everyone. Thanks, Lady, for arranging this.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.